All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Cryptid Warfare and Conspiracies. I'm the host, Z-Baby, with my luscious and fabulous host, co-host, man who is the most, Drewski.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Drewski. Guys, we got a awesome show for y'all tonight. For the guys you don't know, I'm from the Midwest as well, from Colorado. It's awesome to have another Midwest person over here, West Coast, whatever you want to call it. So we got an awesome guest on today. Her name is Ontario Richardson, guys. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a bio on her real quick before we get into this. Okay, Ontario Richardson is a Bigfoot researcher based in eastern Iowa. She investigates and reports for the BFRO throughout the Midwest in states such as Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Missouri. She specializes in casting footprints. I'm going to talk to you more about that because that's good stuff.
Sounds good.
Yes, please.
And working with a long duration of records. She most recently has been working on writing an academic paper which will encompass the details of her DNA collection from a possible Bigfoot hand and arm print. That's going to be, in the words of Zook, it's going to be juicy. It's going to be some good stuff. Okay, professionally, Ontario manages a national account for the largest contract and security company in the world. Dun, dun, dun. Prior to this, she worked as a law enforcement answering 911 calls, 911 dispatcher. So thank you for your service. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yep, so we're just going to get going from there. Girl, thanks for coming on. We've been chit-chatting for a little while, so
Yeah.
on the IG. But yeah, I appreciate your work, and I'm really excited to dive into this because I'm curious about this paper you're writing, and I'm curious about all this DNA you've collected. And you said I remember you and I were chatting earlier about how many footprints like you've casted. It's like double digits, correct?
No, I've done 4.
Okay, never mind. My bad.
Yeah, that's okay. Why did you know?
I took that back. Sorry, never mind.
No, you're good. Give me some more time. Yeah.
All right, so I'm asking the first question. So, when did you start doing all this?
So I first started getting into it, I don't know, a couple years ago. But at that point, I was really just, just reading everything and listening to all the podcasts, watching all the shows, just kind of soaking in all the information. And then I started actually like getting out in the woods like wholeheartedly for Bigfoot, probably coming up in about a year ago.
Yeah.
So not horrible long, but it's been fruitful time once when you start getting out there quite a bit.
What led you to wanting to, I guess, pursue something like this?
So I was doing the paranormal thing for quite a while before this, and it wasn't anything tangible, that you could put your hands on, quite like Bigfoot was, where you can pull something out of the ground. There's hair, and there's things to swab. It's not like all EVPs, like a lot of the ghost work was. So that kind of got me into it. And I've made a couple good friends online that are in the Bigfoot community too, and they were helping me look at the areas around me in Iowa, because it's not really the first place you think of when you're thinking Bigfoot, right? It's like it's only in the Pacific Northwest. But we were able to find a park that is only about 4 minutes from my house, and I've pulled 3 of my 4 footprints from that park, as well as a lot of audio work from putting out long duration recorders out there as well.
Gotcha. What is your largest footprint you've casted so far?
Like 16.
God bless.
They're all usually right 14 to 16. I have one that I think would be a juvenile print, if that's what it is, but that one's like 4 or 5 inches.
What are some of the because I know that there are larger ones out there. What's the largest one you might have heard of?
I've heard of people finding them in like 23, 24 inches. I have a hard time with that myself, jumping on that. But I think like the 18 and 19 ones are some of the biggest ones that I've heard of. That seems to still be in more of a believable range.
Mm.
But yeah, no, that'd be like a 11-foot Bigfoot if it was like 2 feet.
Golly,
You
that's
know, like
crazy.
a 2-foot
Yeah.
footprint. It doesn't. Yeah, that's a little much for me. But
And
Jeez,
you're
though.
able to tell, like, by the size of the foot and the imprint in the ground, kind of like
yeah,
how
I
much
mean,
it
you
might
can
weigh.
usually judge weight.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, what size of a creature would have that big of a foot.
Man, dude, I was fucking kicked in the face with like 23-inch foot. Dang.
Yeah, if there was anything that big, it'd have to be out somewhere in the mountains. It's nothing that's going to be able to hide in Iowa. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It's like the
I'm
one
a-
tree it hides
yeah.
behind. Found it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they're kind of like just like migrating through there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they could be. It's a theory. I got the majority of my footprints in the park, just a mile or so away, in like February, March. And I haven't really seen anything in there since then. I've gotten one knock in June, but you know, it's hard to go off of just, you know, just one thing and say it's anything conclusive.
Yeah.
So I think they were definitely here in February for sure. So
Yeah.
it's been interesting. The area I'm in is kind of along the Wapsipinicon River, which goes through Iowa. It's a tributary of the Mississippi, and there's reports just all up and down the river. So I think that, I mean, they definitely move through, you know, the distance. I'm not sure. I know the North American Wood Ape Conservancy guys. Have you ever heard of them?
Mhm.
Over in the Ouachita Mountains?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have a paper called the Tag 7 paper, in which they, you know, they believe that they tagged one of these things, which is a really fascinating read if you haven't read it. But that one, I think they said it was like 60 miles it was moving. You know, it stayed in the same couple of valleys, but it moved up to 60 miles. So I think, yeah, I mean, they're definitely moving, in my opinion. Because, you know, back in February, March, there really wasn't anybody else in that park, you know, other than me. Was there still snow on the ground? You know, if there were, they were all in the front half of the park. Nobody was in the back. And then as soon as it started really warming up, you know, a lot more people get in there and a lot more people are on the trails. All the activity really tapered off. So I think they've moved different areas. And, you know, I'm working a handful of areas in eastern Iowa pretty hard, but I haven't found anything quite conclusive yet. The most recent stuff I've had was up in Minnesota last month with
Okay.
that handprint.
So what you so like before we go into that the handprint, I'm really ecstatic about that one. So you said you met a couple people, you actually go on a couple of research like expeditions, stuff like that. How many guys you got on the team, basically?
So I do predominantly most of my stuff's just on my own.
Okay.
You know, everything in that park close to me, I've been doing on my own. But I'm also a part of the Lowlands Bigfoot Research Group, which is, you know, a smaller thing with some of my, you know, close friends that I've, you know, BFRO, so people who aren't in BFRO, but there's like 10 people in that group or so. We don't do a ton of big expeditions together, but we'll have offshoots of different people that, you know, we'll get a group of maybe 3 or 4 people who are free one weekend and go out. The early July, me and a couple other members went up to, the Iowa Finding Bigfoot episode. If you've ever seen that, it's up in Yellow River State Forest. We went up there with a small group just over the weekend. So we'll do little things like that. But, you know, if I'm doing a lot of night stuff, it's usually with the BFRO, and I'm, you know, helping lead smaller groups.
Yeah.
So then, you know, I'm not huge safety wise on being out in the dark by myself.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
I advise not to do that, buddy.
Yeah. A gun's great when you can see what you're shooting at, but yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? So okay, so we're both prior law enforcement, so I'm sure when you go out, you always carry, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I was
Okay.
literally about to get into this.
Yeah. So
I just
all
got
right,
curious.
Yeah, I have a Glock 43 and a Glock 19, depending on
Gotcha.
what I'm doing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I got a Glock. I got a Smith & Wesson 40. So yeah, I'm just.
Nice. Yeah.
Yep. As they say, it
I
gets
don't
strapped.
think I don't think my 9mm bullet's gonna do anything with a
No,
bullet,
You
but
just flick it off like a
it's just
mosquito.
gonna piss it off. That's about it.
right. Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of funny because we're talking to God, I forgot how long ago it was. We're actually on her podcast, but we're talking about like the chemical makeup of like Bigfoots and Dogman and stuff like that. Just
Mhm.
like the hair, the hide, the skin, and even like the bone structure of
And the
like what type
organs,
of like
right.
yeah, of like what type of like ammo you would need for like penetration on that thing if they do get
Something that would kill
hostile.
a grizzly, in my opinion. But
Basically, yeah, anything that would take out a grizzly or an elephant, that's what
Mhm.
you would need. So all the times we've went out at my 223-556, I'm like, this isn't enough.
Yeah.
This
See,
this isn't enough.
and you think about if you ever did, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think that there's ever just one of them.
No,
I
there's
think
not.
that there's multiple, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you get, especially when you go into places like new places, it usually if you do get knocks, it's right when you go in or usually right when you leave.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like, a
scouting.
sentinel or something. But I think, yeah, if you shot one, you killed it, great, but it's going to be the one that you're not seeing that's going to be the big issue.
Yeah, you got to worry about the other 4. And not only that, too, if it's like a juvenile, too. That's the thing you really got to worry about if it's a juvenile, because old mama and daddy are going to be pissed.
Yeah, I don't imagine it'd be much different than how a bear would react.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we've had a couple close calls on our Bigfoot hunts, but yeah, I don't. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, what the hell are we doing? But yeah, it's fun though. But anyway, so you got in the BFRO. So what was your first how was your first interaction with the BFRO, like when you first got on? Did they ask
really
you? Did you
enjoyed it.
volunteer? Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I knew one of the guys who was doing a lot of stuff in Iowa. His name was Steve Moon. He's not doing as much stuff anymore with the BFRO. He's out all the time on his own. But I had grown up with him next door, and he is part of that Lowlands Bigfoot group also. So he had kind of introduced me to the fact. I went on it was the Iowa spring Bigfoot trip, and I had also been talking with some of the people that I was telling you at the beginning. Russ Jones out in West Virginia too. He had been helping me look for good viable research areas around me that I could get to all the time. And we had just been talking that next progressive step was going to be talking to witnesses. And the easiest way to do that is going to be trying to get on with the BFRO too. So went on the first expedition in Iowa. I usually have to go on at least a couple to get on. So then the man who organized that, Bob Barheit, him and Steve Moon, wrote letters of recommendation from then, when they found out that I wanted to be on there and they found out I was serious about it. So a couple weeks later, I was able to get on and start taking reports.
So okay, so I've actually had a couple friends that are in the BFRO, stuff like that here in Tennessee, but I kind of figured it's kind of like MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. You basically go out, you investigate, you talk to people who've had encounters. You're basically just doing just like detective work. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I listen to people, and the dispatch thing helped exponentially with that.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten used to what people do when they lie to me on the phone, start seeing through it. But no, I mean I haven't talked to anybody who I think was just outright lying or anything like that. But yeah, that helped quite a bit too, just talking to people.
Yeah.
And for a while I was focusing on just getting through the backlog of Iowa reports that hadn't had anybody touch them in a while, and finished all those, and I've started getting into the backlog for the other states too, and then taking all the new ones when they pop up.
Yeah. What was the have you ever had like a really, really like close call?
I don't know if I'd call it a close call. I had a really weird scenario. I think it was maybe only the second or third time I went out. It was February, and there was still snow on the ground, but it's the first time it really warmed up in Iowa. So snow was melting. There's a lot of mud starting out on the bank. So I thought, it might be a good footprint day.
Yeah.
So I went and just picked a trail that went all the way to the rear of the park and kind of went along the river. Walked in, and I bet, I don't know, maybe 50 yards into the trail, I had stopped to listen to all the different sounds around me so I could get an idea of what birds were out there, what animals were out there that I could hear. And to my right, I heard it sounded like a bat against a tree. I mean, it was like 100% a wood knock. There wasn't any way to mistake that. Maybe 10, 12 seconds later, there was another one off to my left on the other side of the trail.
Yeah.
So that was really peculiar. So then I worked that trail back, and Russ and I had found an area in that park. I think we mapped out 3 different places to check out. So I worked back into one of those valleys and was just kind of walking up the hills off trail, and I saw it looked like a footprint. It had the snow had been pushed to the side, but there was like toe marks that were pushed into the mud.
Mm-hmm.
So I cast that, and we're in the process of moving in like a month, or else I'd show you guys that print, but it's out in a storage unit right now. But that was interesting. And when I was casting that, I had a tree get pushed down off to my right, maybe 50 yards away. Yeah. It was just those 3 separate pieces of evidence really in close proximity. And I was like, man, I thought it was supposed to be harder than this to have these things happen. And I have never gotten quite that much in such a short amount of time since then. But
yeah, it seems like it was just like bam, 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 bam. They're just laying like breadcrumbs everywhere for you.
If you're trying to think of what they'd be thinking, I'm sure that they were surprised that somebody was in there and pushing that far back.
Yeah.
In the cold and the snow. Down in southern Iowa on the BFRO trip, we were working a dirt trail, and I was with the Bob Barheit, that leader, and I think we had 2 other people with us. And we had heard really soft whoops in the distance. We had gone to the end and came back towards the start, and there was this, I don't know, weird bundle of sticks, which it was right on the middle of the trail, so it was probably people. But I had stopped. I was like, hey, I want to take a picture of this. And I had tripped and stepped on it, and it crunched it. And then we had something throw a rock out of the wood line at us and just land right next to Bob's foot. That was really interesting. And then I guess to backtrack that one, I forgot the first part is we weren't even supposed to be on that trail. We were looking for a different trail. And we had, Bob was getting flustered because we were taking like three wrong turns by that point. But we pulled in and went to pull back out on the highway, and we had the windows up on our vehicle, but there's a couple behind us who had their windows down on his truck. And as soon as we pulled out onto the highway, there was just 2 really, really loud, crisp wood knocks that we had gotten on recording. So it was really interesting too. Once we had heard that from them, we turned around and went back to the trail, and it's the one that we recorded the wood knocks on, whoops, and had that little rocket thrown out at us, which was interesting.
So what was the environment and the atmosphere like whenever that stuff started happening? Like, did you get any sort of like did your senses go off, or was the environment like quieter than normal? Like, was the wind, like, did the wind stop, or?
I don't know about the wind. We had a whippoorwill, which is a type of bird that was going the majority of the time we were on that trail. But towards the end, I think it had cut out. But you do hear that quite a lot. And in a lot of my recordings too, when you do start hearing those things in the background, it does tend to get quieter. It's kind of like, the forest takes a breath almost.
Yeah, it's kind of like when like a predator's around, everyone, everything just shuts off, and you're like, oh.
something's going on. I know you're listening
Yeah.
to frogs and stuff, and all of a sudden you hear nothing, and it's like,
It's
Yeah.
not you.
I know, right? Man.
And you were with somebody whenever you heard the first knock?
in the one where I got the footprint.
Mhm.
No, I was by myself for that one. It was during the day.
Okay.
Yeah,
Girl,
so most of my
Wow.
stuff
you got
when
some
I'm out, yeah.
cojones, girl. Hey.
Now she's got a Glock.
Yeah, she got Glock, man.
Helps the
Glock's bigger than
confidence
mine,
level a
man.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
And you know, I mean,
send
we
it.
got, you know, I've had coyotes run really close to me, and those, you know, they can get kind of ornery sometimes. And
Ooh.
you know, we'll get the occasional mountain lion too in Iowa. So
Oh man,
better be prepared, yeah.
haven't
Oh,
seen any
gosh.
mountain lions since Colorado. They ain't got nothing down here in
Yeah,
Tennessee. I know that.
they're around
They show up.
in
Yeah, it's
eastern Iowa
weird.
for sure. And I don't know if you guys seen on the news, but there's that mountain lion in like some residential neighborhood in Nebraska that somebody's gotten on their Ring doorbell like 3 or 4 times.
I think I seen that. They had it on. It was
That's
MSNBC or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, I seen that. I know what you're talking about. Okay, so it's kind of funny because BFRO. Zook and I met one of the guys. First time we ever heard of BFRO was like 2015, something like that. But we
Mhm.
actually met a dude at this thing called Crypticon. We went to.
Mm-hmm.
We got all his information and stuff. We're actually gonna go with him on a Bigfoot research expedition. And he's like, you guys are all good to go. Just don't bring guns. And we're like, what? Yeah, I don't.
BFRO like
know.
certified
Drop.
trips. Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, because they said they
a
can
lot of
smell like
people-
the gunpowder and all that and stuff. I'm like,
Well,
I'm
I
sorry,
think
dude.
a lot of it's probably the worry that, you know, not everybody's obviously trained in how to use a weapon, and yeah, I mean, you don't want
You don't want
some guy who doesn't know anything spooked in the dark, you know, when a
Yeah.
rabbit runs by and have them start firing rounds off into the woods. I think.
Yeah, I don't want no
Yeah.
desk pops going on.
No, but you know but I mean, you can keep them in your cars. They're pretty good with that.
Yeah.
You know, for the trip in there and such. But yeah, no, I mean, if it's not, you know, not a BFRO, you know, certified trip, yeah, I mean, I always have it on me.
I guess that saying is when daddy don't know, don't hurt him. So okay. So the DNA, let's see what you got here. Gosh dang, girl, you're like Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska. Okay, so you've been to all these states, correct? I've done expeditions in these states.
Not
or
interviewed
interviewed
them,
people.
but I'm taking witness reports from all of them. But
Gotcha.
you know, I've been to all of those states, you know, a big handful of times. You know, I've done it and done the trip in Minnesota. That's where Handprint was. We're, you know, right on the border of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
With that as well. And one of my areas in eastern Iowa, you know, touches Wisconsin and Illinois and all that good stuff too. So, you know, I think I don't think Bigfoots pay attention to state lines, right? They're just gonna us wherever they can, yeah, wherever the food's at.
Yeah, it's gonna go on through.
How many reports on average do you get a week? Or a month?
They come in spurts, weirdly enough. The last big spurt of reports came in around 4th of July weekend, but I think, you know, those things happen when there's more people out, you know, on the water, out, you know, recreating. I think, you know, a couple have trickled since then. A week, maybe one, if I'm not going back through the old reports, because that's, you know, when I don't have anything new pop up, in flats is what it's called. I'll go back through, you know, all the records and look for notable ones. I'll look for ones that say they have pictures of things, whether they think they have a picture of a Bigfoot or they have pictures of a footprint. I'll usually reach out to those people first and see if I can get their pictures sent to me before I start talking to them. So kind of, you know, it saves you a lot of time when it's, you know, clearly a stump in the wood line.
Yeah.
You know? But one good one I got from a picture lately was down in southern Nebraska. It was, pretty much touching Kansas. But this guy had a cabin, and he was down there with his family towards the end of the winter, early spring. And he said there's, about 90 different cabins around there, but there were not that many people there at that time. But they had gone there to kind of get it cleaned up for the season. And they had been, grilling that day. And I think another important part of the story that I uncovered after I talked to him was that there was an older woman 2 cabins down that had been putting food out for the wildlife throughout the summer and fall, and then left for the winter. But I think he said it was like 10:30, 11 p.m. at night. His whole family was sitting in the living room watching a movie. It was just him and his daughter who were awake. He was sitting in his recliner, and he hears something just throw its whole weight into the side of their cabin. And like hard enough that it knocked all the pictures off that wall. And he said he grabbed his rifle and ran outside, and they found a wet footprint, Bigfoot footprint, like 2 feet off of where it hit. And he looked up, and about, I think he said 6'2", 6'3" inches up, that the siding was damaged. Yeah, which was interesting.
6'3". That had to be the shoulder ramming into it.
Yeah. He said he played college football, and he said it sounded like something line-backed into the side of his cabin, but it wasn't. It wasn't there when he was gone. But the grass outside his cabin was dewy, and it had stepped on a concrete pad.
Left
a
wet
footprint, and he took a picture of it and sent it over.
Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, would you mind sending me that on IG? Or no?
I can, yeah.
Okay, cool. That'd be awesome. Man, that's gonna be cool. Dang, that's a good one right there. Shoot, I don't know what the heck I would do.
Yeah, there are just gems just sitting back in old reports.
Yeah.
That either, somebody looked at and didn't think anything of it, or, it just hadn't been touched. Because there just isn't a lot of people, in the Midwest that are doing this.
Yeah. Have you gotten any, oh gosh, I'll just throw it out there. You ever got, okay, we're going to sidetrack a little bit. What do you think about Dogman?
I think I don't want to run into it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah. So, anyways, the reason why I asked, because I noticed there's a lot of mixtures between Bigfoot sightings and Dogman sightings, and people thinking they've seen a Bigfoot. In reality, it could be a Dogman. It could be a Dogman. It could be a Bigfoot. Like going through like your reports that you gather and all that. As if you came across anything like that.
Nope, no Dogman ones. I've uncovered some strange alien ones. That weren't, they weren't tied necessarily to Bigfoot, but they come out. So much comes out in conversation just when you're talking to these people. You might finish it like, oh yeah, well, if you're interested in aliens, can I tell you this? And I just let them go on, and some really interesting things have come out. Yeah. So this guy was from Mexico, but he had lived in Minnesota for like 30 years. So he's been here a long time, and we had started talking, because he had thought he had found a Bigfoot footprint in Minnesota. But it was like the least interesting part of that conversation, funny enough. But he had said, so he lived in Mexico when he was a little boy, and his dad delivered fruit on a semi, and they'd go out to these really remote areas, and they had, so they were delivering that stuff, and he was riding with them in the semi because he really wanted to see what the sky looked like outside of town. And they had stopped at this house, and his dad went in to eat dinner with the family, and he had said he just, I just want to sit out, I just want to look at the sky, sit out in the semi. And so he was looking at, just watching the moon. He's like, man, this looks different, than it does in town. And he, the longer he watched it, he realized that it was, it was small, and it was slowly getting bigger.
Yeah.
And so he got out of the truck and looked up, and he saw, I was to his right, maybe, what was the actual moon. and this thing just kept, getting bigger. She ran inside to get his dad. And because he said he thought like the world was going to end, that whatever this was going to hit the earth. And he looked up, and it was like a yellow glowing, but then it had like blue rings kind of around it, like an ambient light. And then he said it kind of looked like glitter, but he explained it that once he watched it long enough, it looked like these little lights that were coming off this thing, and then eventually this light disappeared slowly, and then it was only these little like flying silver things around it. But then that next day he was in town and just walking down the road by this hotel, and he said he saw like 7 or 8 NASA Jeeps pull out of this place. And he's like, well, that's weird. He's like, I wonder if it's related to that thing last night. And then later that day, he was at his house with his family, and his grandma had asked him, to go and get some milk and bread or something. And he had seen down the road this big grouping of people, of like 80 people, and this thing was back in the sky in a different area. And yeah, so they had watched it for a while, and then it had kind of started like just moving and left, right, and he couldn't see it in that spot anymore. She's like, yeah, I guess show's over. So he left and he walked back to his house, but then he could see like over like the fields that had moved way back in the hills, and it was just like flying around the hills. We said that there wasn't any highways or anything over there, but he called it like the Sonar de Silencio area. And I kind of dug into some of the historical records of what he was talking about, and a lot of it was popping up of these things that happened. But the government, so the US came in and had said that they had launched a rocket from Utah or actually I think it was New Mexico. And they said, oh yeah, that's what this is. Stay away. It's dangerous.
Lies, all lies.
Sounds so reasonable.
Yeah, sounds familiar right now.
Yeah, it sounds a lot familiar. Yeah, I wonder. It almost sounds like an orb or something like that. But yeah, UFOs, man, they come in all shapes and sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you what, yeah, that's interesting, man. Really interesting.
Kind of makes me think like still, even though I know it was a separate kind of experience, it's interesting how somehow between so many eyewitness accounts and just other evidence that there seems to be a sort of correlation somehow, like and if
I think some
Bigfoot,
people are more open to it.
like kind of makes
And
me
they
think
tend
like
to
what
get these
exactly
weird
is
things.
Bigfoot? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm in the Bigfoot being a physical thing. I think it's
Oh yeah.
A wood ape of some sort, which would probably be a hominid. Probably more monkey than person, in my opinion. But there are a lot of weird things that get reported around Bigfoot. I haven't talked to any witnesses personally that have reported any just direct correlations, between orbs and Bigfoot, or Bigfoot just disappearing or anything like that. So as of now, right, we can only speak to our own personal experiences. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
So true.
as of now, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird though. It's kind of like I know it's like in certain regions of like the United States, like certain things happen. Like here in the South, we talked to a lot of people where they see like a lot of orbs and then like a lot of Bigfoots with it. So a lot of them think it's kind of alien, kind of spiritual. And then you go up into the Northwest, they're huge, they're physical, they're huge. And then also in like the Midwest, same thing. They're like more physical. And I don't know. I think it just depends on the variations of, I guess, people you talk to and like their backgrounds and whatnot. I don't know. It's
I think
pretty interesting.
If anything's supernatural related, I'd say Dogman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel evil.
I agree.
There's not many more
100%.
Dogman encounters. It's usually
because I know.
Malicious.
Yeah, because I know, like on like a lot of reports, like Bigfoot have been shot, they have been killed. Dogman, you read in reports, you see the bullet.
Yeah.
Like with Dogman, like talking to a couple people, you've seen bullets they've stated that have hit the thing and dust flies up. Like, you know how it is when you shoot something and you see it a little bit, but they just look at you like what? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, and not only that, like,
I want to piss off
yeah,
more. Yeah.
yeah, and then also, you know, like the fear they have, it's like a certain type of like primal fear they have, like it's like an evil fear they have whenever they see Dogman. But
Yeah.
Bigfoot, it's really not so much like that.
Yeah, I think, and for Bigfoot too, I think, some dogs, right, are just, more mean, right? Some are really sweet, all animals I think have a personality on some level, and some are just grumpier than others. And I think that's probably a thing with Bigfoot is that, there's probably dangerous Bigfoot out there.
Yeah,
I think, it depends on the personality. The David Paulides, I'm sure you guys have.
Oh yeah,
heard
missing 411.
Missing 411 stuff.
Oh, dude.
I think he said there is either like 2 to 5% he thinks could be directly related to Bigfoot. But that's a decent amount too. That is some people that are disappearing. And you hear about these little kids that get just disappear, right? And then they show back up and they're like, where did you go? And oh, a bear was taking care of me. And they're crossing these deep rivers, and it's like something isn't adding up here.
I know. Yeah, and they end up exactly right where they've been searching for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and man, just getting into 411s, it's so weird. Like those stories. The one that really stuck out to me was, I mean, the boy did pass away, but I think it was during summer, and when they found his body, he was tucked up high on this cliff face, and there's no way he himself could have got there, but he ended up dying of hypothermia, of all things.
Yeah. The ones that stick out to me are these people that take off their shoes, and usually when people go hypothermic, they get warm, they start feeling warm, they take off their clothes, but I don't remember where it was, but he had taken off his boots and had his body was found up a pretty sheer rock face, but his feet, no cuts on them.
Yeah.
Which is darn near impossible in my opinion. Crossing rock and sharp snow, sharp ice, all those things. But there's some really strange ones out there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I think it was this one I was hearing on YouTube, but David Paulides was talking about how he was doing an investigation in California towards like the sequoias and all that. There's these 2 hunters that like went missing, and they finally tracked it and they found them, but their rifles were bent and they were stuffed up in the tree in like this little pocket of this tree.
That's
but they were like almost like a puzzle, like broken and everything into this tree, and they saw him with like one of their arms and their legs sticking out, and they pulled him out. So
yeah, that's weird. So if it was if it's grizzly bears typically will bury their food, right? They're not putting them up in a tree. Cats might put them up in a tree, but I don't think a mountain lion's gonna bend a rifle.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta have opposable thumbs to do that.
Yeah. So it's like it doesn't quite add up.
Got old giant raccoons out there, Clyde. Oh man. Okay, so all right, I want to get into this. What is it? Okay, on your academic paper. So you said it encompasses the details of the DNA collections and possible Bigfoot hand and arm prints. So what are you trying to? I want to know what your objective is with this.
My objective is there's a big DNA study going on right now. I don't know if you guys have heard about that or not. At North Carolina State University, it's kind of being orchestrated by a guy named Darby.
I heard you talk about that on your IG on one of your pages.
Yeah. So this is it's a big one. They have a lot of government funding that the DNA studies that have happened up until this point haven't had, and it's going a lot deeper. And it all kind of happened, weirdly coincidentally that all these things kind of happened around the same time. But when I swab that, right, the whole goal is to lift what they're called skin surface lipids and SSLs. People for a while we were calling it sebum, but talking to the DNA professionals and the people who work with the skin surface DNA cells is a more appropriate word for it is SSLs or skin surface lipids. So I'm trying to change my vocabulary a little bit with that. But getting those sent to the university is a big goal of mine right now. So it can it could take part in a really historic study of some very intelligent people who are interested in anomalous phenomena. Whether that's Bigfoot or something else. So grand scheme of things, right? It'd be great to play a part in getting this recognized as a biological species.
Totally.
Scientifically.
Yeah, that would definitely close the books on a lot of things and just have it focus on one thing scientifically. But are you going to send all your all of your DNA samples to that specific place, or are you going to hold some of it back?
I kind of go through that. So I think you need the bigger story for that. So Tuesday night, the BFRO trips usually go from Thursdays to Sundays. I typically try to arrive on Wednesdays a day earlier. But the woman whose car that this handprint was left on arrived Tuesday, and she was one of only 2 other people in the whole campground at that point. The expedition leader was there, but at a distance down the campground, and then there was one person pretty far off who wasn't related to the expedition. So she got there Tuesday afternoon, ended up going into her tent around 7 p.m. She was asleep by 9. And in the paper too, I have a timeline of when all these things happened, to make a good case for the fact that I think this did happen Tuesday night. But Bob Barheit was the expedition leader on that one too. Him and the other BFRO woman who were there early had left the camp to go on a preliminary night ops before everybody got there on Thursday. So they, I think it was one of 2 times, somewhere around 10:30 or 11:30 or after. But they were gone right for this first window of time. But after that, they had gone to sleep too. And the nice thing was Bob had an Apple Watch too, so we were able to tell by his heart rate what time he was asleep, so we could better pinpoint the time. But so the funny thing is, it's a miracle that we still got this handprint by the time we found it. She didn't see it Tuesday. She didn't see it all day Wednesday. I got there Wednesday afternoon. We had gone out, the group of us, Wednesday night to check out another area that we were going to bring people to. And she stayed in her car that night. She just didn't, she just hung out and was listening to sounds around her. She didn't want to walk. And we had gone back to the cars pretty late. Bob made the comment. He's like, Helen, I think I see something like on your car. But she just said she was too tired to check what it was, and I didn't hear him. And so it was Thursday afternoon by the time she saw this handprint on her car. And she went and got Bob, and Bob, had her come get me so we could, take pictures, get some measurements and swab it. So I didn't have a good DNA kit. It's something that I had been thinking about that I didn't have. It's this, you think you need to do it, but you just don't get around to it.
Yeah.
So what I did have was sterile gloves in my kind of some first aid stuff. So I used those. And then we kind of cobbled a DNA kit together with some Q-tips from another expedition attendee. And we made a paper envelope, because you're really only supposed to use non-acidic paper, like brown paper bags, because like plastic, it can encourage mold growth, which will really deteriorate the quality of the DNA.
Yeah.
So we just folded up a notebook paper envelope and swabbed this thing. We got 3 swabs after we photographed it, 2 of which were sent to Doug Hychek, which I'm sure you guys have heard of his name. So he's working on that Legends Meet Science too, and kind of looking at DNA and SSLs. And then 1 is being held back for the university to be included in the DNA study. So that's on ice in my freezer right now, which it's just like
check.
Yeah. But yeah, and it was it was weird, and it looked like a person's handprint, right? But down the arm, I mean, were absolutely fur hair marks running down, at the base of it, and more of those markings kind of off of where I think an abdomen could have been, when it pressed up against her car, because she had a bunch of her food too, where that thing was looking in the window, which was interesting. And I don't know if you guys watch any of the Small Town Monster stuff, but their most recent saga for the the Mountain Monsters West Virginia, Les O'Dell was on there, and they have what looks like pretty much exactly what I got on the car in Minnesota left on theirs in West Virginia, which was really interesting to me. But that same park, we pulled a pretty amazing footprint from, all within the same 9-mile area, which was interesting. We had found that footprint, it had rained like exceptionally hard the night before. And so we thought it'd be a good day to go look, along the riverbanks and some of the muddy trails for footprints. And we're just walking the riverbanks, and I kind of just, moved off from where everybody else was. I was kind of getting into the weeds, and it looked weird enough, but I was like, this might be something. But it wasn't obviously a footprint when it was pressed into the mud. But it's a good example of the when in doubt, cast it out method. And we did, and you can see a heel, you can see the mid-tarsal ridge from the mid-tarsal pressure point. When they move, it kicks up a ridge of whatever substrate they're walking on that makes a ridge. We pulled that from that, and then 15-20 feet away along that riverbank, one of the other guys on the expedition who had just kind of continued walking past me, saw a game trail with some like clamshells down in just at the water, the river's edge, and we walked back up that game trail into the grass, and we think we found a bedding site where these things have been sleeping.
Yeah, they're actually known for like the clamshells.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of saplings and fern leaves around there that were snapped off at the bases and laid down on top of the flag grasses. These just, it's probably a 30 to 40 foot area of, what could be beds. And those clamshells that we saw in the river, there was a big cache of them over in like the rear far corner of it, just piled up. Something had been eating them. And one thing we looked for was, droppings or excrement, right? Because if it's deer, like deer will lay down in tall grass and push it down, right? But deer will crab wherever they're walking, right? And so will bears. And there was none of that. We didn't find any hair. I wish it wasn't like 6 hours away so I could get back up there and kind of, look through these things a lot closer. But Shane Corson from the Olympic Project's been looking at those photographs with me and trying to piece together the similarities that, that they're saying up here and that are popping up in other bed sites as they arrive. All over the U.S. Dang, and then, and then that I think it was Thursday night. We were walking a trail, and I was leading a group of 4, and two, we split up to go into smaller groups. Me and one other person went along this grass trail, and the other people kept walking down this gravel road. And I was like, you know what the heck, let's just do a knock. So we found a good dead tree and we knocked on it. And exactly 8 seconds later, something knocked back to the north of us. And we did it one more time after that, and something else knocked to the west. And then, and then we were looking down and we found bear prints. So we turned around, so I didn't want to run into one of those in the middle of the night. But yeah, but and I think, the big part of this is the handprint, right? I'm collecting DNA, but I think all those other pieces of evidence are important to include in that, because it ties an even better argument to the fact that these things could be there, than I think if the handprint just does solely on its own. I had sent some of my photographs of that off to Cliff Barrickman, and he gave me a really good idea too, which I'll definitely do next time, is instead of just swabbing the handprint, this is a good idea for everybody, is using graphite powder, putting graphite powder on it, and then getting like a clear contact paper, and putting it on there, so that way you can lift it, so you can, it's way easier to analyze that when you have it in front of you than it is a photograph. And so you keep the print, and you also keep all those SSLs that would have been left over on the vehicle.
That's
so, hindsight's 2020, right? For, 15 years from now, when I get another car that has a handprint. But yeah, but I just finished writing that paper today. And I sent it out for the first kind of round of peer reviews from some other investigators too. So, once I get that back and could probably tweak it from what they're saying, I'll put it out for people. I'll probably either put a link to it in my IG, or have people reach out to me if they want a copy of it to read.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, whenever they send that, you tweak it. I want to read it, send it. So
sounds good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Z?
Yeah, so I've been taking some notes, and some questions, and I'm assuming whenever, like, I know you mentioned the Sasquatch, you've kind of been following. They move around like a 60-mile radius, pretty much, and I'm assuming that's pretty much weather related, probably, or
I think
just
so.
like
Yeah, right. Seasonally. So those NIWAC guys, is, I read everything that they do, and I listen to all their audio. I think they're doing an exceptional job. But yeah, they were seeing these, this subject that was tagged move where the tree cover was, right? So, because they had this thing for almost a year, and it was tagged, and when the temperatures got colder into the winters, it was moving towards, where all the pine trees were. And then in the, when it started warming up, it was moving to, I think it was deciduous. I always mix up the two, but it was following the cover, right? And so they had planes flying over this valley, picking up a radio signal and talking to the guys on the ground on 4-wheelers. And they say, 50 yards over here, right? And they go and ride over there. And they were hearing knocks whenever they got close to where the signal was picking up the strongest.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some good recon right there.
Yeah, they do an exceptional job.
Man, we need to hire a pilot.
Well,
yeah, they got a really wide variety of people there that have kind of joined their forces, and and have people that fly planes, and people in the military, people in the police force, and biologists, right? Everything they need to really get a well-rounded group of people.
Well, that's smart. Exciting, just seeing this grow. Like, I know, obviously, when 2020 came around, a lot happened, and over the years since, so many things have been coming out, and then more people have been more open-minded to things, and it's just so cool, like the communities that are being built through this, and because it sucked, like people, I don't know, they would be ridiculed, even though they would literally have the evidence, and anything from like a legit Bigfoot head which I believe this Bigfoot was probably a Yeti.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was found in the Elks, but it had brown fur. I don't know. And the dude also had the arm of it. And he was talking about his experience, and he said, "No, I put this on ice. It's been in my freezer for years. I didn't want to come out, but now that I am, and now he actually has it. But it's crazy because when you have that much evidence, somehow something happens to the person, or the evidence just disappears, or even if they sent off the evidence somewhere, it'll get lost, or the analyst will be killed or something. It's crazy."
Right. Well, that's why people are freaked out about sending their evidence, as it ends up getting destroyed a lot of the time. And that's something that happened in, one of the last 2 DNA studies that happened. It was for a TV show. And unfortunately, a lot of people sent in some good evidence and it got destroyed, when it wasn't used. So, I think that's kind of a roadblock that they're running into with this new one is getting people that are going to trust enough and still, maybe hold back a piece of it, right? Just in case.
Yeah. Well, the way I forgot the heck I was talking to, but I was talking to Tony Merkel about this a while back. He's the guy who does the Confessionals podcast, but we're talking about why, like, on the possibilities on why the government or black box agencies cover up on Bigfoot. So they're thinking, like, okay, money wise, right? National parks, trees are like a big cash cow. Everything's made with trees. You got your toilet paper, lumber industry. Yeah, if they came out and disclosed that, either 2 things would happen. Either like the parks would completely shut down, logging industries would shut down because they would name that as an endangered species, right? Or you would get a lot of rogue people that would go out and try to hunt these things, and a lot of people would actually get killed. And it would just be just a total mess. But UFOs, when they're coming out in disclosure, like, everyone's like, they really can't hunt them. You really can't do anything to them. But Bigfoot, that's a totally different story.
Yeah,
that's on our ground, on our playing field.
Right. Yeah, and I think the attendance in the national parks would drop exponentially.
Yeah, totally.
I think people would be super freaked. No one wants to go take their kids camping.
Seriously.
If there's an 8-foot tall hairy lurking around. Yeah, I think it'd do a lot.
It would
to a lot of really lucrative industries. I mean, I think they definitely know about it. I mean, park rangers talk about it all the time.
Yeah. Oh, well, it was funny. Zook and I were at this conference recently, and they actually had a couple park rangers there. So I was like, "Hey, what have you guys heard? What have you learned? What have you seen?" And they just both looked at each other. We don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, a good
I was
question.
Like, oh!
And literally, we're like, this is a Cryptid event.
For those people are, what areas of this park, if I wanted to hike and not see anybody, where would I go? And kind of fish their brains that way. And was the funniest thing was on that last expedition we did up in northern Iowa. A park ranger, and I saw Bigfoots on our shirts, right? And he came up, approached us and wanted to talk to somebody about Bigfoot. And, sometimes they come through this campground. They've been known to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the government knows about it. I think the park rangers know about it. The national parks probably do too, but they just, it's just kind of hush.
Yeah, they do. One of our buddies, Nick Valente, he was in the military. He was in special forces and stuff like that. But he was also a part of, like, the critter crew, is that's what they called them. So they would send his team into, like, national parks and stuff if things went rogue. A lot of people went missing. So they would drop them in. They would close the park down. They would drop them in, and they would go hunt this thing or capture it, and then they'd bring it back to wherever they take it. So, and then they'd open the park back up again, because he said sometimes you would have, like, rogue Bigfoots or rogue whatever that would start killing people, and then we have to go in and take care of it.
Military bases too.
Yeah. So I think they're tampering with, like, mixing with DNA and stuff. I'm going off way left here, but I don't care. But anyway, so I thought that was pretty interesting. So.
Yeah, well, I think that brings up something interesting I wanted to bring up earlier, which was, we brought up in several episodes, but too many people were just looking down at the ground when they need to look up in the trees. And I know on our recent
Mhm.
expedition, that's what I was doing a lot, even though there were. I mean, we were at a slant on the side of a big hill or a mountain, hill,
Yeah.
and there were a couple eyes in the tree line, which there had been a lot of weird things in this area. I mean, and of course, there was a massive cave behind her property. I mean, 50 foot from her house.
Yeah.
Some of her chickens ended up missing. There was a massive stick. You can't get to her house unless you actually walk through on the front way, because there's a massive creek that's about an 8-foot drop. I mean, it's just steep.
Oh, speaking of footprints too.
Seen anybody? They would have seen somebody.
Yeah. Speaking of footprints, I'm gonna send you this footprint that she sent us. I just want to know what your what your thoughts are on this, though. I'll send it to you a little later, but yeah.
Yeah, happy to look at it. But yeah, I think they're definitely in the trees sometimes, and I think, why not put a juvenile if you had one up in a tree, right? No one's looking up there, safekeeping.
Yeah, that, or if you want to pounce on something, drop down.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. We got, known animals that do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the different types of Sasquatch? Because I know there is the Yeti, there's the skunk ape. I'm just trying to figure out, because I know we have all these different types.
Yeah, orange pendants, Yarens, brown jacks, Yowies. I mean, there's all different types, right? And that's a big part of me on how this seems so real to me is, we have something like this on almost every continent, right? And each culture has their own, and these are, cultures that have been reporting them for a very long time before we were all, communicating, intercontinentally. And even in Vietnam, when our soldiers were over there, right, they were running into rock apes.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's it's people who aren't exposed to kind of how, I don't think the word I want to use, but just how Hollywood that Bigfoot's kind of become in the States, and the word Bigfoot, yeah, in and of itself, and they've had reports forever, right? I think the earliest one in the U.S. is the 1700s. People were seeing these, right, and the natives were seeing them way before then. And I think, not to jump back on the alien train, but it's a good case for the alien thing too, because a lot of these tribes were seeing, did pictographs of star people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and that's a good place, I think, to look. And was it not? I mean, it's not Dogman, right? They call it Skinwalkers too, right? These things are popping up culturally all over the place, and I think that's a really strong argument for these things really existing.
Yeah, it was funny because the recent expedition we went on, at first we thought we were going to go track Bigfoot, and then it turned out to be a Skinwalker freaking expedition. I was like, "Oy,
better you guys than me."
Yeah, I'm like, dude, that was something that we're not ready for at all. I started to question, I'm like, should I go?
Yeah, and then it turns out, it turns out that this area we were in, it was actually between the Chickasaw, the Cherokee, and like Black Hawk or something like that, and they basically had a feud where they trapped 3 skinwalkers in this cave, and their medicine man basically trapped their souls into this cave. So, and then we went freaking caving in this freaking cave. Wow.
Did you guys hear? I don't know if you listened to. I heard it on Bigfoot Society podcast, but it was this cop down by the land between the lakes.
LBL.
And I'm gonna butcher the story in its entirety, but he had met this. I think he was a firefighter, right? Who was camping on his own. The guy's like, be careful. Like, some weird stuff's been coming into my camp. I don't know what's going on. And long story short, whatever these things were predated on this guy and ate him. And they they had closed it down, and there was cops all over the place. And that cop had also heard things kind of paralleling him when he was in the woods too. So yeah, that land between the lakes is nuts.
Oh, yeah. It is. There was another one too back in the 80s where a family got killed too.
It
That
was a
was
horrible story, man.
That was
Like,
that was a big
we were
one.
reading about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That land between the lakes is off the chain up there, man.
I know.
That's
I'd
awesome.
love to see that Uinta Basin too over
Yeah.
by Skinwalker Ranch and all those things because they just, they got tons of Bigfoot stuff, right? Tons of ghost stuff. They've got, tons of alien stuff, and it'd just be, I think, a
Yeah.
great vacation.
What I know, right?
Oh my goodness, I would love to go to Skinwalker Ranch, and then I mean there was a Skinwalker Ranch to the
Me
south
too.
around this area, but just out there, I remember reading the book. I forgot what it was, but it was more scientific based, and it was just crazy coming from these people who didn't believe in this stuff at all, but the experiences they
Yeah.
talked about, and then seeing like an actual humanoid, which ended up like it looked like a Bigfoot coming out of a portal.
Was that
Like,
the book? I can't remember if it was George Knapp who wrote it, but it was about
Beyond
Nids.
Science.
I think it was
that-
called the Skinwalker Ranch. I think
Yeah,
it was like a
yeah,
really
because
easy name.
it went into that family that lived there that was ranching.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and the
That's
dude,
a
some
great
people are like, he
book.
must have been
I've
an
read
idiot.
that 2 or
I'm
3
like,
times.
no, that rancher had like his master's degree and like he was really smart, really smart guy. He just got the property for a steal. Then he specialized, like he sold cattle, and his cows were like 10K each, and yeah,
Big black
those
Angus
wolves or
cattle.
whatever, skinwalkers, they were killing them off.
Mhm.
Yeah, and something like vaporized his dog.
Oh, I remember that.
That
Yeah.
Yeah, he
place
followed.
too. Yeah, and they
dog
were
followed
having
that
weird
orb in the
orbs coming in
woods.
the house. The wife was having, cooking utensils disappear that she just pulled out. That whole area is bonkers.
I thought it was weird, like that weird clause or whatever it was in the deed where you said you just can't be digging on the land, but they would hear
Mhm.
continuous. It sounded like moving mechanical parts under their property.
Yeah,
Almost like a base.
yeah, they're getting
Yeah, I'm
weird
like,
sounds
base.
from under the
yeah,
ground.
base. And that's what, like, when we were talking to one of our buddies, I don't know, I don't know a lot like about caving, but there were like just massive parts that were just cemented off, and this cave is about like her property is just like an hour from civilization. So it's just weird that there were massive just places that look like you can go in them, but it was, man, like 20 feet it was just cemented over. The only thing I can think of is like maybe it's because like the property owner, maybe there might be another entrance to the cave and they just didn't want anybody to enter, so they cemented it.
But there was a lot of concrete. There's a lot of barriers in that cave that were concreted off, though, dude.
Yeah,
And
I don't know.
we
it still
kind of
scratched
looked
my
at the
head.
whole, I guess, like the whole, I guess, like blueprints of it. That cave connected to the Mammoth Caves in Kentucky.
Yeah, I think Bigfoot definitely uses them. I don't know if they necessarily live in them, but I mean, why not duck in there if someone's coming, right? Why not
Yeah.
get out of the rain and the snow?
Elements, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we did when it got too hot.
Yeah,
It's nice and
An
cool
awesome
in there.
spot.
yeah.
So
Oh, and I do have one more question, but so do you have, or are you able to share like some upcoming expeditions you might be going on?
Yeah, I have one coming up here in a couple weeks in Iowa, and I'm going on that one with Jeremiah Byron. So he's Bigfoot Society, right? He's also based out of Iowa. And then Tate Hieronymus is going on that as well. I don't know if you recognize that name from the Small Town Monster stuff, but he's Florida based.
Hmm.
And he does a lot too with the Bluff Creek Project, if I'm speaking correctly. So they're going, and a couple other people too. But yeah, we have one coming up in Iowa that we're going to be doing. That's the last one I have on the books for like actual expeditions, like overnight expeditions planned. The Wisconsin BFRO one's coming up end of September. That should be a really good one too. But we're closing on a house we're building that same weekend,
Right on.
so I had to pass that one up.
That's very important.
well, congratulations on that.
Thanks,
Yeah,
right? It's like,
congrats.
dang it, Bigfoot. But yeah, I mean, I do a lot of stuff on my own in the woods too, and so there'll be no short of that. And I try to get out a couple times in the evenings if I can, every couple of weeks, after dark, but I don't stay out.
Yeah, just be careful. Seriously, just be
Mhm.
careful. So
Yeah, how big is your team on average?
I like smaller groups personally.
Yeah, you get more activity that way.
Yeah, like 4, 5, 6 people.
Yeah.
Whenever
For
you're,
like more of the private expeditions.
Mhm.
Some of the BFRO ones, right? They get groups up to 30 sometimes. But
Dude, that's
Dude,
huge.
that's
Yeah.
That's way
massive.
too big for.
I
Yeah,
know,
way too
but
big
the
for me.
thing that we do is we usually try to have a couple BFRO people there too. So we you know where we're going, they're big areas. So we split groups.
Oh, you spread it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and we send everybody in a different corner of the park that
You
looks
just
good.
kinda
So we'll still probably
close it
only
in.
have 3 or 4 people.
Yeah.
You know, and in the areas like when we were in Minnesota with the bears, because I mean somebody had seen I was out hiking on my own in the daytime, and I don't know, the other expedition people had driven up, and there's like a mom and her cub just walked out behind you and crossed the trail, right? So you know, if we're in areas like that, we try not to do small groups,
Yeah.
but we'll stick to 4 or 5
How long,
people.
like,
So.
and I know there are a lot of factors to this, but how long are your expeditions on average?
Private ones, usually like 3 days, 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
BFRO ones are typically, would be Thursday, Fridays, 4. But I like to get up before other people get there too.
Yeah.
When it's just, maybe 1 or 2 other people, because you'll get a lot of really good activity. And some people swear too by staying an extra night after everybody leaves.
Yeah, they
They've
come and
gotten
try to check it out.
crazy
Yeah.
activity after that because they think the Bigfoots just get, why is this person still here? Leave. You're not supposed to be here anymore.
Get off my land.
Yeah.
Get out of my house.
Like on our first Bigfoot hunt, it was like the day right whenever we were leaving that morning, they were freaking loud knocks.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to say anything, but it was the guy who was one of the biggest skeptics. It was like, man, them knocks just on woke me up. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
So you heard the coyotes?
I
was an idiot. Like I kept my tent farther from everybody to get like, so, yeah, I wasn't smart. So when I first met Drewski.
Nice. Yeah, I car camp usually when I go out. I just have an air mattress that fits in the back of
Oh,
my
you ready to go? Hit them keys.
Man,
Let's go.
glamping.
Wow.
Yeah,
dude.
see, I like it too. I got these things off of Amazon. It's almost kind of like a sock for your window, but it's a mesh and it sits over the top, so you don't get the bugs in, but you can have your windows down and you can hear everything, and you can see out of your vehicle really well. And
but they can't see you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Man, okay. I think I need to do that too. So
Nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And your camp never gets wet, right? You're never the person when it dumps rain, then all your gear wet.
What's funny is I like to do like a lot of like bushcraft survival stuff, and just when we went on this last expedition, everyone's in their tents and stuff, and I made like this survival freaking like tarp tent. Girl, I got bit up with chiggers like crazy.
That Minnesota,
he looked like a freaking star system.
Yeah,
like
it was bad.
That Minnesota trip. Oh my gosh! I always talk about the mosquito being the state bird of Minnesota, but I was wearing hiking pants, right? I had sweatshirt on, completely covered, and I was casting this footprint, and these dang mosquitoes were biting me through my pants, biting my shoulders, my arms. And eventually I had to put on my rain gear just so I had something that they couldn't get through. But, I got back to the car. I had 28 bites on just one of my legs. Like your knees start swelling up and you're like, this is for the dogs. Like, I don't know. But you gotta watch out for those things. That's the nice thing with those windows too, is you get the breeze, but bugs can't get in and get you.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. That sounds pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question like I ask everybody else because I stole this from Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles. What do you think Bigfoot is? Like, what is Bigfoot to you?
A relic hominid, probably. More on the ape side than on the people side. It's hard. I guess it's hard to know, and it opens the whole discussion of what constitutes tool usage and all of those things. But I think with what the information I have at my hands, and the people I talk to that I respect, I think it's you know, it's a completely natural thing in my opinion. You know, it's something that shares a lot of our, you know, our DNA and is in the same great ape family
Check.
that, you know, people and chimps and orangutans and great apes all fall into.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, that's basically all I got. What about you, Zip? That was some good stuff.
That was
man.
really good.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, we are. I am.
Chart.
I know. I am excited for that paper to come out. So
Yeah.
whenever you do, if you would please drop it in my Instagram box, that would be awesome. I
Yeah.
can read through it. So, oh, I just sent you those footprints, by the way, Instagram via Messenger. So
Okay.
whenever you get time, look at them. Just let me know what you think. So, but other than that, if anybody's got any questions, you guys want to get a hold of Miss Ontario Richardson, where can people find you at?
Social media. So I'm on Instagram predominantly. That's where I'm more active on. I'm also on Twitter too. I try to, you know, post what I post on Instagram over there too, but it's just, you know, it's just harder sometimes. So I'd say, you know, Instagram is usually the best place. I'm on Facebook. I don't necessarily post my Bigfoot stuff on Facebook, but you know, if they, you know, can find me on there, that's fine too. You know, email also is okay, but I think Instagram's the go-to place. So I'm on that more often than anything else.
Gotcha. Cool beans. Yeah, I will definitely send that to Zook and we'll put it in the show notes on your Instagram. That way people can reach out to you if you got any questions or concerns or anything like that. They just want to pick your mind. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but all right. Well, dude, I just thank you for coming on. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I wouldn't mind
Thank you
having
for
you
having
back
me.
on again
Yeah,
to hear how things are going and any new information and stuff you find out. So that'd be awesome. So we'll definitely keep in
sounds
touch.
good. Awesome.
So,
Thank you guys.
all right, buddy. Be
Thank you.
safe and congrats on your new house.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I know how it is moving. I hate moving.
I
I
love
know.
it so much.
I know it's the
Get in
worst.
on moving. It's like,
It's the
man,
worst.
man, you never realize how much stuff you have until you start packing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's like, oh, that's where that hat's been at. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you gotta dig everything back out.
Right on. All right, buddy. We'll get
Okay.
some rest. Appreciate you, and we'll chat later. So, all
Sounds good. Bye.
See you later.
right, buddy.
Bye.
Later. Bye. All right, guys. Well.